Greetings and salutations. Doing a little bit of back work on one of the earlier pages of this to kind of finish off certain steps in the project. So I worked at a ranch resort kitchen in Colorado in the late 90s, and my first boss, the first chef I worked under, he had an interesting thing to say. One of the something that should be self-evident in regard to cooking. He would always say, you can always add cooking, but you can't take cooking away. You can add cooking, but you can't take cooking away. So if you're cooking a steak and the customer wants a medium rare steak and you make it medium or medium well because you're not paying attention, well, you can't make a medium rare steak out of a medium steak. And drawing with ink is quite similar to that principle. So with oil paint and acrylic paint, if you mess up, well, you just paint over it. Ink isn't quite as forgiving as that. Now, this seems kind of contradictory while I'm using a liquid frisket, and this particular page 3 of the comic book project, has taught me one lesson in not letting liquid frisket sit on the page too long. It kind of becomes problematic. But the notion of you can always add ink, but you can't take ink away. Well, you have scratchboard. That's pretty useful tool in the artist's media arsenal. Though I don't want to imply violence with the term arsenal. You know how people are sensitive these days. Still, there is this inherent need to this inherent need for discipline, especially in this digital age with CGI barf in most movies. I think, so if you take into account like the movie Alien or the movie Aliens, and why that movie is so much better than any of the CGI movies. You know, you would think about that. So you have all this CGI that would take the burden of so much planning and infrastructure off the shoulders of the creatives that are involved in the movie. You would think that would be the thing. That would be, it would be lifting a burden off one's shoulders by having computer-generated graphics to do an awful lot of the heavy lifting. But what if, say you're going to make a movie like Aliens, and you know you're going to have an awful lot of this special effects going on. So while you're getting all your infrastructure and all your special effects set up, your sets and your machines and your props, you're working on the screenplay, you're working on actors, you're working on all this other stuff. And there's this massive, huge, catastrophic, just gigantic amount of investment and time and effort in making these sets, the spaceships, the props, the weapons, and all that. And so because of that initial investment, that massive, huge investment, you want to make your script as good as possible. And I think with computer graphics and computer-generated images, I think it becomes too easy. You can just rubber stamp projects right out the door because an awful lot of the computer-generated graphics, I'm not a computer whiz, But, there's an awful lot of graphics engines that are used. So even with the heavy lifting of generating the digital art, there's so many other systems within that make it easy. And if you can just hammer out the projects because of CGI barf, you just one project in, one project out. And so it's a lack of storytelling discipline that I think was required back in the day because of the massive investment in time and effort in making the sets. And computer generated art doesn't have that inherent discipline of you can add cooking, but you can't take it away. It's just one of those things, I think. Just my opinion. We'll leave it at that.